up on Tech News today, why GoDaddy suddenly changed its mind about SOPA. Louis C.K. is an instant, 12 days millionaire. And Volkswagen turns off email, but not for everyone. We'll explain next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, December 23rd, 2011, Christmas Eve. Tech News Today is brought to you by Ford, featuring available Sync with My Ford Touch. Sync with My Ford Touch gets you to your destination with integrated turn-by-turn directions and directional arrows displayed on screen. Check it out in the new 2012 Ford Focus and at Ford.com/technology. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And joining us from across the seas, showing that at this time of year, we can all get along, Editor-in-Chief of Wired.co.uk, Mr. Nate Lanxon.
Ahoy, and of course, hoy. How you doing?
Brilliant Christmas sweater that you have on there.
Thank you very much. It's covered in sheep. People confuse this with being a Christmas jumper. However, to correct the errors, this is a jumper that I happen to just be wearing at Christmas.
It's a fine line.
This is just a jumper.
Okay, just a jumper, folks.
Now, the UK jumper different than the US jumper, where it'd be like almost like a onesie.
That's like a unitard sort of onesie, yeah.
Unitard's a little more gymnastics than what I was going for just then. But
Yeah.
a sweater.
Right,
Yes.
right. And there are
That's a
other
sweater.
fanny pack with other hilarious
yeah.
confusions that we won't
Lost in
necessarily
translation.
get
Boy,
into,
it never
yeah.
ends.
It is the last show of the year
We're punchy.
that we're recording.
say.
Official show.
Now, we are going to have 5 new shows. If you haven't been watching live, shows that you've never seen before. If you have been watching live, you may have seen us record them. But on Monday, we do our predictions results. On Tuesday, we
Best
do
stories.
our biggest stories of the year. On Wednesday is our open mic episode where we have listeners from the audience, 3 of them on the show. Thursday is our best of compilation that Jason just finished editing
nobody's
based
seen
on your
that.
suggestions. I've seen it.
I mean, live.
But nobody out there has seen it. Jason's obviously seen it, and it's awesome. And Friday is our predictions show, which we actually just got done recording, where we make our predictions for what will happen in 2012. So that's all happening next week because we're all kind of wanting holidays and the news gets really slow in that last week of December. We'll be back on January 2nd with regular shows all the way through January 6th. And then Monday, January 9th, we're off to CES. Where we'll
Off
be doing
to
shows.
CES.
CES is a little later this year.
It's
I
a
guess it
week
is.
later, and I am glad. CES is so much fun, but it's a lot of work, and it was always pretty much, you done with New Year's? All right, New Year, get yourself to Vegas and work really hard for 5 days. We've got a week in between this time.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good. Was some time to ramp up and savor the final CES with Microsoft as a keynote presenter and a booth
I'm
member.
going to weep through
Yeah.
the entire keynote.
I'm going to visit the Microsoft
Don't
booth
go, Ballmer.
every day we're there.
You're going to put
Just
flowers
hug
down?
Just,
every one of
just
them.
refuse to leave.
Just give them all teary hugs.
Just
I wouldn't be
Touch
surprised
one
if
side of the booth.
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Ballmer weeps a little bit.
Yeah.
I think, you know what? We should actually take pieces from their booth so we can sell them off, auction them off. It's the final piece.
They're not going to have a piece of their booth left by the end of
That's
it.
right. It's going to be ripped to shreds. I'm taking the carpet.
Remember, never forget.
All right.
Xbox.
But we do have news stories today. Of course, we talked yesterday about the boycott forming against stated supporters of the Stop Online Piracy Act, a.k.a. SOPA. Since that list of 120 or so supporters came out from Congress, a couple of other lists have been circulating. There's one signed by something like 400-plus companies that is a letter from September, which doesn't explicitly support SOPA. It supports balanced legislation against rogue websites. It's not that much different from the aims of SOPA, but a lot of companies have fallen off that list when it came time to actually express explicit support for SOPA. So I think a lot of companies don't want to be associated with what SOPA does, even though they still might like something similar against so-called rogue websites. But we also have 40 internet companies coming out publicly against SOPA, and these, some of you totally expect Creative Commons, Boing Boing, Facebook, Google, Grooveshark, Kickstarter,
Mozilla.
LinkedIn, Mozilla. Yeah, there's not a lot of terribly surprising entries here, but these folks had been silent up till now, even though we kind of knew they were opposed, and now they've written their own letter. 4chan even signed this.
Also doesn't surprise me.
No, it doesn't surprise me in the least. Nate, over there in England and Europe in general, what is the mood on SOPA? What is do you care about it? Do you think it's just a U.S. thing, or are you worried it would have wider implications?
I mean, really, it's the internet, so it indirectly affects everybody, probably in a bad way. I mean, as a law, it doesn't directly affect the UK, but generally the feeling is pretty much the same as it is in the US. I mean, it's bad. Well, it's bad for people who aren't the movie industry's lawyers. I mean, but it's one of these things that if anything is going to stop the internet from developing, or is going to stop, entrepreneurs getting a cool new idea and trying it out in the States that could eventually be a business that does benefit the UK, then, if those people can't do that, then it's bad for everybody. So, I mean, in a roundabout sort of way, it affects us all, I guess.
One of the only internet companies to express support was GoDaddy. Of course, quickly a boycott was organized. Ben Huff from I Can't Has Cheeseburger, one of the most high-profile people to say, I will remove my domains from GoDaddy if you continue to support it.
I mean, over 1,000.
The Positive Internet Company, which is a UK company, and a domain name registrar, offered to transfer domains away from GoDaddy to any registrar, be it themselves or their competitors, for free, as a protest against SOPA. However, today, GoDaddy said, we're not for SOPA anymore. GoDaddy
Gee, I
CEO,
wonder what changed.
Take backs.
GoDaddy CEO Warren Edelman he's been in the position for a week. And basically said they've got quite a bit of feedback from our customers. He wouldn't admit that boycotts and the criticism are affecting his decision, but he is saying that they no longer support SOPA in its current form.
What I would like to know is, does the GoDaddy CEO, did he not fully understand what SOPA was in the first place? Or is this just a case of public opinion is now against me, I have to change my tune, and what I say doesn't really stand for much because I can just go 180 in a day?
If they didn't understand SOPA in the first place, that would be very disturbing for them as a registrar.
Very
Absolutely.
much so.
But go ahead, Nate.
Doesn't the government not even understand SOPA? Isn't that half the problem? Yeah. That these guys writing the laws don't understand what they're basically doing. Isn't that half the problem? I mean, GoDaddy, I think, was actually on some kind of a committee to write the draft, I think I read that somewhere. Like, they were involved
actually,
in it.
they say in their post on GoDaddy.com that says they no longer support SOPA, they say that GoDaddy and its general counsel, Christine Jones, have worked with federal lawmakers for months to help craft revisions to legislation first introduced some 3 years ago. Jones has fought to express the concerns of the entire internet community, blah, blah, blah. So they're trying to spin it that they were trying to stop all of the horrible things in there, and that's why they've changed their position. But, 2 weeks ago, when the bill was largely the same as it is now, they were giving unequivocal support of it. So my interpretation is that they are bowing to the pressure, and they are bowing quickly.
They could lose a whole lot of business. I think my favorite thing about this entire post is that the contact information is for a PR specialist. Not just regular PR, a PR specialist, because they screwed up so bad, and they got raked over the coals this week for basically standing up for something that everyone was like, why would you, of all people or companies, be doing this? Mm-hmm. Now every statement is going to be carefully crafted by Stephanie Bracken. So good luck, Stephanie. You got a lot of work.
Yeah. I hope your wrist is limber for the spin that's coming. What else did it said here? Jones has fought to express the concerns of the internet community and to improve the bill by proposing changes to key defined terms, limitations on DNS filtering to ensure the integrity of the internet, more significant consequences for frivolous claims, and specific provisions to protect free speech. As a company that is all about innovation with our own technology and in support of our customers, GoDaddy is rooted in the idea of First Amendment rights and believes 100% that the internet is a key engine for our new economy. However, in the post that they reposted yesterday, they said that there were no First Amendment issues with SOPA. They stated that unequivocally yesterday. They said it was ridiculous to think there were.
Maybe they're just a little behind on the news cycle when those law professors who went ahead and wrote some really great First Amendment arguments against SOPA. And the thing is, I mean, it's I think right now the in vogue thing is to say SOPA isn't entirely evil as long as you change about 80% of it, or define things. I know it's a crazy idea, but defining things kind of might make this less evil, because right now it's just so broad.
Yeah.
It needs a lot of amendments. It needs a lot of cleaning up before you can actually say, oh, this is somewhat enforceable and not crazy. But right now it's just
They're helping to craft revisions to this legislation, but we can clearly do better. So overnight, they went from saying you're an idiot if you think there's anything dangerous about SOPA, I mean, pretty much, that's what they said in their blog post yesterday, to saying, there's still some problems with this. We're not going to support it until the entire internet community supports it.
Yeah, a consensus among internet leadership. Because we're not that, and we'll just go with wherever the tide goes.
Yeah, I don't think, a lot of times you can jump to a conclusion that a company is doing something for one reason or another because it kind of looks that way, and usually the reasoning is much more complex. This is one of those instances where I think it's very clear because of how clearly they stated their position in the blog post yesterday that actually was posted originally in December versus their abrupt change and the change in the rhetoric and the tone today, that this is entirely because of the boycott. Or the threat of a boycott. So now it becomes, for the protesters, do you continue to boycott GoDaddy?
Well, I think you do if you think that GoDaddy is only changing their tune because they've gotten a lot of bad PR. I mean, the whole idea is that if you believe in SOPA, the people who don't agree with you are going to boycott you. If GoDaddy is just going, listen, we have to think about our business here, so let's completely, trash what we just said and say, okay, no, now we're not for SOPA. That already sounds ridiculous. Do you actually believe that the company is no longer for SOPA? Or do you believe that they're just saying that they're no longer for SOPA? Because if inside they feel that it's okay, it's good bill, let's pass it, then I think that people should continue to boycott them.
So Positive Internet Company is still an option for you then? To move your domain names to other registrars, whether it's Positive Internet Company or somebody else.
I think it's for people individually to decide. Is it too late? Did GoDaddy already ruin things for themselves? Is there no takebacks? I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to speak for anybody.
It does take a little wind out of the sails to say, like, GoDaddy used to support SOPA and they changed on a dime because of the boycott, so still boycott them, versus they support SOPA unequivocally in very direct terms. The biggest mistake they made was stating their support in such hostile terms.
So they said if you didn't support it, it was like a myopic view.
Yeah, they call it.
They used some words that were pretty strong.
Loaded words.
It's not like, okay, they just signed on to some letter everybody else did. It's like they had a statement that was really negative. So
it kind of sounds like what you're saying, the latter of what you were saying, Sarah, is probably true.
Yeah.
And they still believe that.
I also agree with OpDenP in the chat room. Draft beer, not draft laws.
Yeah. You know
Words
what,
to
though,
live by.
there's a deeper problem here. That just going back quickly to something you asked about earlier, the law affects the US, but if you have a server that is hosted, that is in the US, and you're a UK business, then I'm pretty sure that the US laws could be enforced on that server because it's hosted in the US.
Yeah,
Which means that for a UK business, that means that if I was to set up a company that was targeted by a SOPA ruling, because my servers were hosted in the US because it's cheaper to host over there with you guys than it is here, then I could be in trouble.
Yeah, in fact, just having a .com domain name is all ICE needs to look at to seize your domain name.
Yeah.
The SOPA Act is meant to give you an ability to block domain names that aren't .com, .org, or .net.
Yeah. I think we can conclude that this is actually bad for everyone in the world. I'm just going to conclude that right now.
All right.
It's bad.
So concluded. Motion carried. Let's move on to happier news for economists. Record online shopping bringing new meaning to holiday stress. Okay, so the economists like this because it means everybody's spending money. But we saw the FedEx delivery driver that threw the box over the fence, and FedEx has since apologized and said they've taken action against the driver. There's also posts out there about people saying, hey, the UPS guy left a box in the puddle. A lot of folks speculate that at this time of year, with the amount of packages being delivered, a lot of temps are higher. They may not be as well trained. They may not be as responsible. There also is a story here from All Things D about canceled orders at Best Buy. They ran out of heavily discounted merchandise, forced to void orders that consumers had placed last month. And just now you find out, that Christmas present you bought, not going to come.
Well, there is something to be said. There is, an advantage that a brick and mortar store has. You walk in, do they have that gift that you want to, I want to give Tom a gift? Is it in stock? Yes? Okay, I'm going to take it off the shelf and treat it kindly and wrap it up, give it to you.
Yeah.
You know, when you buy something online, or you have to depend on somebody to deliver it to you who might be doesn't have this gift in its best interest, in his or her best interest, then yeah, I mean that's kind of a no-brainer, right?
For the first 48 days of the holiday season, ComScore reports $32 billion in spending, jumping 15% over last year. And ComScore says 4 individual days last week surpassed the $1 billion mark, setting a weekly record of $6.3 billion.
So all these companies try to stop doing the whole Cyber Monday. We're going to have all these deals. No, I mean, nothing's really going to change. The thing
That's
is,
all marketing anyway.
The weird thing about this is, like, I remember when, like, shopping online, people were like, I don't want to do that. That's scary. I can't put my credit card there. That's nuts. And now it's like it's happening so often that, like, people are worried about their boxes being chucked over a fence. Or their, I mean, this is it just means it's mature enough that there's enough people that complain. This is how I always look at this. When there's a backlash, it means it succeeded. That's how big this is. Online sales are big enough that people are like, you know, I don't want to go to the store. Going to a store and trying to fight people for, like, the littlest object at the end of the day versus going, okay, Amazon, okay, got it.
Nobody goes to stores, though. They're too crowded.
So then, I wonder if that's happening enough.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like the stores are
The
too
popular
crowded.
girl, it doesn't get asked out.
I live near a mall, and I can just see when I drive by on my way into work and back every day. It's jammed in there. I don't want to go near that parking lot right now. So it's
Everything
obviously
is
people are
jammed.
going out,
Sure.
but they're also spending a ton of their money online.
Well, I mean, it is the more convenient way to shop. There are just certain things that are out of your control when you shop online. Yeah, something might be delayed. I mean, you're not going to be able to do anything about that.
But you won't get trampled.
That's true.
Unless it's by the UPS guy.
Unless you're sitting in your own driveway
just
when that CPU comes flying at your head, and
You're
then
under the fence.
and you're in a coma, and it's a problem.
Is the e-commerce story similar over there in Europe and the UK? Do you know?
Nah,
Nate?
not really. We've not had any real problems. Honestly, we have 100 times more problems with the weather. You know, an inch of snow, no presents. That's it. Transport gone. Presents over. Christmas cancelled effectively. This year it's actually been kind of okay, but I've only bought one present this year online. I went to stores for everything. It was crazy. I've never, ever shopped so offline in my entire life, except for maybe when I was about 5. But we don't seem to have the same problems. I don't know why. Maybe it's because England's smaller.
Well, Greece doesn't have any money left, so maybe that's, it's not as crowded.
No, I guess not. Or it's just because everyone's buying Kindles. That seems to be the trend this year.
That's the big gift over there these days, huh?
It is. Yeah. A guy in the shop was saying the other day to me, he seemed to detect that I was a technology journalist and started telling me about how this year, man, the Kindle, it's last year's iPad. Well, cool. Okay, thanks for that. But it's true. I mean, I bought one. I bought one for no one who's watching.
Right. Right.
I know what you're talking about.
I know. I haven't gotten one from you. Louis C.K. has a lot of money to give some gifts with. He has made $1 million over the 12 days since he put up his DRM-free video. Of course, the headline at Engadget and headlines elsewhere saying, hey, it proves DRM-free content is valued, which I think is fair to say. People spent $1 million on something they could have gone out and stolen for free. It's un-DRM'd. It is available as a torrent. But he made $1 million off of it. People wanted to support him. He only charged $5 for it. And he is sharing out the money.
Yeah, he gave a little over $200 to his staff.
A little over 200,000.
200,000. That was
for a big
implied.
fat
The K. There's a K implied there.
He gave, yeah.
A little over $200K to the cost of the production itself, actually having the show and the website costs associated with hosting it. Over close to $300,000 really to a variety of charities. The charities he outsourced on Twitter. Hey, who should I donate to? What are some good charities? Because obviously there are a lot of them. And then he said, I'm going to keep a little over $200K for myself. I've got a family. They need to eat.
He says he's never had this much money at
one
once.
time. Can you imagine suddenly, within a 2-week period, I made $1 million.
I just made $1 million these past 12 days. Now what?
Yeah.
It's amazing, too, to think of this is somebody who is he's a successful comedian. He's got his own show. People know who he is for the most part, saying, listen, I'm not interested in getting a bunch of money. He could have easily kept that for himself, and people still would have said, great show, funny guy, look at this, online only, $5, what a deal. But he didn't. he took it a step further and gave a lot of it away and said, you know what, I don't need this money.
There's no
I
way
don't
this
want $1
is-
million.
There's no way this is going to change the minds of content companies. I mean, I remember when Wolverine was leaked, and I'm a comic nerd, and I'm like, oh, Wolverine's leaked. I don't want to watch it this way. Even though you could get it for free, it still had like a nice, like it was the #1 movie that weekend it came out, even though it was like a work print copy, whatever, like even if it wasn't finished. This... I think the content industry is just going to be like, oh, this is an aberration. This is something that's unusual. We can't go out there and go, here's our content for that's not DRM'd, works for music, and works for Louis C.K., it works for other things. I just don't see these content companies just loosening their grip on this ridiculous ultraviolet or iTunes digital copy or any of these DRM things right now, because I just think they're just petrified of the concept that their stuff will be available out there and people will steal it. It's like if you have a real connection to your audience, like Louis C.K. does, or comic nerds or stuff like that, like if you have an actual tie, people will give you money. Like it happens more often than you think.
Nate, do you think this is precedent setting? Do you think it'll change anything, or is it going to be dismissed as an aberration?
Can I admit that I don't know who Louis C.K. is?
Yes.
You may. You may, as a European, vow ignorance. But he's a popular comedian over here.
Cool. I think with these sort of things, I kind of wonder how much of the success of these sort of stories is down to the fact that, you know, you're speaking maybe to someone who understands the message you're giving more. I want to see what happens, you know, if you take a kind of a pop artist and do this sort of experiment, whether the kind of the ratio of theft to, you know, donation or whatever is the same as it is for these sort of people. You know, when you see people like Radiohead making their albums free or pay what you want, that to me, the results of that seem more fitting as to how it could affect the whole industry. I'm not really getting across what I'm trying to say here, but basically, if you ask someone on Twitter a question about Twitter, their answer is probably going to be slightly more informed than the average person in the street. And I just wonder whether that's kind of the same thing that happens here when someone who has an opinion on this and whose audience has an opinion on this sort of stuff steps up and says, right, let's make a statement. You know, people are more willing to kind of buy into that sort of thing, I think.
That's a good question. I'm not sure if Louis C.K.'s audience is that much more internet savvy than the general audience.
Well,
Neither do I. I'm just. It's a total guess. I just think that
it's a good
when
point,
I've seen this sort of thing work in the past, and people like Jonathan Coulton, and where their audience is so, you know, is much stronger in favor, I think, in general of, you know, DRM free and pay what you want, and, you know, all that sort of thing. I just think the results are more favorably skewed in favor of DRM free being good than if someone like Justin Bieber came out and said, oh, you can buy my album for $5 or pirate it. I think a lot of kids would just go out and pirate it, and it would skew the tally. But
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I think that's what everyone assumes, and I think that's the assumption that is undermining the industry, is that everybody would go out and pirate it. And I think the history and the tendency of people to do things for DRM-free music that they can get for free right now means that they will pay for it if it's done right. It just has to be done right.
Well, some people will pirate it anyway and then decide to donate or pay for it, or get a paid copy anyway and go, you know what, that was really good. I think I should be buying it. Some people think of pirating as we're sampling it. Because if you're listening to it on the radio, you don't go, I'm a pirate, I'm listening to it on the radio for free. You're like, no, that's just the way I'm getting the audio.
When I whistle it, I feel like a pirate because I didn't pay a publishing or a performance license.
Every time I sing Happy Birthday, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
I know what you mean
Any
on that
public place? Woo.
Yeah, don't put me in that position either, Tom. When you whistle it, I feel uncomfortable because I'm listening to it for free.
I know. Exactly.
An accomplice.
The whistling pirates.
Yo ho ho.
They're the worst this holiday season. They're in front of every drugstore. Actually, they have bells. They're not whistling.
Arr.
Those aren't pirates.
Those aren't pirates?
The guys with the bells.
Oh, I thought they were pirates. Now they're much less cool. Let's take a break and thank our sponsor, Ford, featuring Sync with My Ford Touch. One of the great features of Sync is Sync Services. We recently took Sync Services for a test drive. Check it out. Hey, Tom Merritt here. We're going to take off from the TWiT brick house in the 2012 Ford Focus. How are we going to get there? We're going to try out the new Sync navigation features. Okay, so if you plan ahead, you can actually use Google Maps and MapQuest or the mobile app Sync Destinations to plan your destination ahead of time, and it'll be available for you in the car. I didn't plan ahead that well, so I'm going to show you how you do it when you just start off from scratch. Navigation.
Navigation.
460 Kenilworth Drive, Petaluma.
When ready, press the voice button and then say set as destination.
Set as destination.
Setting destination.
Maybe I'm going to look at.
All right, let's go.
In 1/10 of a mile, turn right.
See, it just tells me.
Turn right onto Kenilworth Drive.
So we had this weird little U-turn there, but map showed me where to go. Not a problem.
Your destination is ahead on the right.
There it is. Play dog play. Just like it said, destination on the right.
You have arrived at your destination on the right. Route guidance is now finished.
So that's how Ford Sync with My Ford Touch gets you to your destination with integrated turn-by-turn directions, arrows on the screen. You know exactly where you're going. It's available in the 2012 Ford Focus, and you can find out more about these Ford technologies at ford.com/technology. I'm going to pick up my dog now.
Why are you laughing?
Hey, buddy.
It's just
Cheap
the dog's
excuse to
really
get my
funny.
dog in the commercial.
The dog is hilarious.
I love Sawyer.
Every Sawyer cameo, have a drink.
And we thank Ford for their support of Tech News today. Can you spare a cycle, Sarah, for the poor?
A bicycle?
Oh,
Please.
fine.
Cycle for the poor.
Ah, humbug. Sure, take your cycle.
Please, sir, can I have another cycle? Except you're
Oh,
not, sir.
I gave you one.
Charity Engine is a nonprofit volunteer computing grid based on Berkeley University's BOINC software for grid computing, B-O-I-N-C, as used by lots of projects like SETI at Home. Charity's Engine is simply donating what it makes from research projects on its grid to charity, while incentivizing users with some randomly generated cash prizes. Profit from the commissions from science and industry is shared 50-50 between the charities and the prize winners. And you can use the invite code for their beta Crunch from TechCrunch in Europe, eu.techcrunch.com.
If you're feeling charitable with your computers and things, there's also all kinds of at-home projects if you want to try folding at home. And you can use your PlayStation 3 if you wanted to. You don't have to necessarily use this one, but you can go through and do all kinds of things. If you just do a search for at-home projects, there are a lot more than you expected. I was very surprised by how many are out there.
CharityEngine.com is the direct URL if you want to go check them out. I like this idea of, donate. You want to donate something. Yeah, it's okay. Donating money is good, but maybe you don't have a lot of money. This way, if you have a computer and an internet connection, and it's not going to be significantly expensive for your power bill to leave it on, donate some cycles.
And these programs aren't necessarily taking over your computer either. It's like when
and
you're
you
not
might
doing
win
stuff,
$10,000.
get money. You might save somebody's life too.
What's stopping you?
Yeah, the next jackpot is $10,000.
When you put it that way, Tom, yes, I can spare 2 cycles.
Because you might win $10,000.
melted.
Now I see.
Well, and I'm also just really, really generous.
What do you think of this, Nate?
Well, my first question was that about power. I thought, would it not be better to just, donate $1 than leave your computer eating energy and, adding more carbon output to the world? But I was reading the story, and it said that Charity Engine says that its software typically adds less than 10 cents a day to a PC's energy costs, but can generate $10 to $20 for charity. I mean, I would love to see how that figure was arrived at. I mean, I think this is great. I really, really do. But, I mean, I'm much more in favor of just giving someone $1. But cool stuff like this is cool.
I tend to believe that the 10 cents a day thing is probably true if you have your computer on a lot. If you're the kind of person who only has your computer on for an hour a day, then this is going to raise your power bill. And so the calculus is going to be different depending on who you are. You actually don't even have to use calculus. You could probably just use straight addition. But I do wonder about their claim of this is how much money they generate. It may be absolutely true. I, like you, would like to see a little more about how they do it. But I'm going to guess that they're not exaggerating too far.
Yeah, I mean, someone in the chat room, Greg, was saying that people leave their computers on all the time, and that's true. I do as well. But, if you're using extra cycles or you're using additional power, then, is the kind of combined usage going to be, what's the cost of that combined usage? Would you not be better giving it, just giving that money away? I think what they could have done here, actually, is just promote the actual charity they're giving it to. It would have been a really good kind of awareness-raising initiative for the geeks.
Well, and they do have a page with all of the charities that they donate to. In case I mean, that's always the first question, right? Is where does my money go?
Where's it going? Yeah.
So you've got Sight Savers, War on Want, Water Aid, Oxfam, Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International, CARE, ActionAid, and Practical Action are the charities.
Okay, that's cool.
Those are all charities I can get behind, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, people in the chat room were wanting to fight early involving Iyaz. This was before the show, so we're going to give you what you want, folks. Here it is. Knockdown, drag-out fight about Samsung saying no room for ice cream sandwich on the Galaxy S, the Galaxy Tab, because of TouchWiz. Iyaz, you go first.
I'm fighting about something?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, you might as well.
It's going to be a huge
All right,
fight.
let's go. Ready? This is moronic. Okay, Samsung's saying that they can't fit Android 4.0 and their helpful TouchWiz interface. Now, HTC said the same thing about HTC Sense for a while. And they're like, oh, we can't figure it out. We can't possibly do it. And they've managed to figure it out. It just seems like Samsung's deciding to go, you know what? We sold 10 million Galaxy S phones, and we have this Galaxy Tab that's out there. So you guys get left out in the cold, or you can just go ahead and root your device and get Android 4.0. You don't need this stupid skin anymore because Android is mature enough to survive without it. Okay, now you go.
Oh, no, you're not fighting with me. You're fighting with
Jason.
Oh.
Now you go.
Well, all I was going to say, I don't know if this is much of a fight because I agree with what you're saying there. Well, I'm not a fighter.
You agree with everything Iyaz says?
Well, okay.
I mean, I know you were trying to be a nice guy, Jason, but
well,
you think he's right, huh?
Well, I do agree with what Iyaz says. I think what this is kind of solidifying some of my fears with the third-party overlays in combination with Ice Cream Sandwich. Because like you said, Ice Cream Sandwich really kind of raises the level, kind of where Android is now. And you take these these hardware manufacturers that have their skins and their overlays and stuff. My fear all along has been that you're going to take something beautiful, and Ice Cream Sandwich is a great revision, and then it's just going to end up looking like all previous versions because their overlay skin is their skin, right? And they want it to look like theirs. So it's not going to be much more than just a couple of the extra features of Ice Cream Sandwich and look exactly like every other, TouchWiz phone. This phone, the Galaxy S in particular, has 512 megs of RAM and 2 gigs on the ROM. So when they say there's not enough space left for it, I'm trying to figure out, like, what do they mean by that? That the ROM can't hold anymore because TouchWiz and video conferencing that is so bloated that it's taking up all that space? Because 2 gigs is a lot.
For some reason, they can't offload that to the SD card or do something else.
They can do something because, like you said, developers, third-party independent developers.
Is going to put this thing.
Oh, heck yeah. They're going to have it on there fast.
But see, what's weird is like when Apple does this with their old phones, they're like, you know what, you'll get like 6 out of the 10 features. Okay, now I think Samsung could also have done the thing where you can get TouchWiz if you want. You can opt in, or at least give you the option of go one way or the other. Like if you want to keep TouchWiz, go ahead and stick to this thing. But if you want, you can have a limited experience or no TouchWiz experience. Because if you're going to sell this phone, and this thing was a hot phone, why not continue to support it other than the fact you want people to buy S2s and whatever else comes out?
I mean, manufacturers like this are they're not interested at all at maintaining these previous models of the phone. At this point, they are the ship has sailed, and they're working on their newer models, maybe supporting some of their models that have been released in the last 6 to 8 months. We hope for 18 months because that was that whole handset alliance kind of promise back at Google I/O. Remains to be seen if that's going to happen. But yeah, this really kind of just sucks.
A few people in the chat room are speculating that they just want to sell the newer phones.
Absolutely, they do.
And I think that they can get away with it because we don't keep phones for 5 years, and these phones are getting close to 2 years old. So most of the people that have them have already moved on or are very close to moving on. So it's not going to have the kind of impact that can cause enough outrage to change it.
And they're not going to put in the work to split, to splinter even their versions of TouchWiz even further just to do something like this. They're going to be like, well, it's time for you to upgrade anyways. Just upgrade.
I don't know. I mean, even Apple throws a line to their old things, and they draw lines in the sand all the time. If Samsung can't do it, I think that's a bunch of nonsense. This just seems so artificial. That's what's driving me crazy about this. This isn't a real limitation.
Apple doesn't say things like, we have no room. Sorry.
They go, your phone is incapable
They just say, it's too bad. Buy the new phone.
That's true.
They pretty much
I think it was 5.0, they gave a part of the actual feature set to the 3G. And they said, look, if you have older than that, you're out of luck. Forget it. The other thing is, like, the original iPhone could do video, but they didn't put it in there because they said it looked really crappy. But when you did the jailbroken thing, you could do it. So these artificial limitations, I mean, if it's really going to make the phone awful and unusable, which I doubt, then I just don't see the reason for it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I just don't think there's going to be enough outrage to make it be a negative for Samsung enough to change it. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Nate, what do you think that Samsung could possibly be forced into changing their mind on this, or does it just end up being nothing?
No, probably not. I don't know. I don't really have a huge amount of opinion on it. It's more that I kind of want to know what this doesn't fit means. You know, I mean, with the 3GS, for example, a lot of it was down to things like graphical horsepower and CPU or battery life. And you know, are they using fit as a generic term for saying, there aren't enough graphical, there isn't enough graphical horsepower to power a much larger, higher resolution version of TouchWiz that we've coded for these new tablets? Or, you know, is it something like that? I mean, if I tried to explain graphical, CPU cycles to my parents, it's not going to go down well. But if I just say, it just won't fit, they'll say, oh, okay, cool. Okay. And I just wonder if it's one of those things. They're just doing it because they've got to market this. They've got to put something on a sticker and say, bam, here's the reason you can't have it. Apple was a bit more techie and said, it's just old and it needs the graphics or it needs the memory. Samsung's going for the it won't fit route. And I just wonder if that's what it is, if it's just a tech thing.
It's a Savile Row thing. It's not a good cut. Ice cream sandwich doesn't drape well on the Samsung Galaxy.
Oh, and by the way, if it's a matter of me fighting Iyaz, I win for all you video listeners. See, there we go.
Wow. Ooh.
Ow.
I'm just saying.
Uppercut.
Punch.
I win that battle.
High punch. All right, finally, employees of Volkswagen in Germany will be able to, in fact, they'll be forced to relax a little in the off hours. The company has made an agreement with the trade union to stop routing email to company BlackBerries within a half an hour after a worker's shift ends, and not to start again until a half an hour before the next workday begins. All other features of the phone will still work, and senior management will keep receiving email around the clock. The head of the VW Workers' Council has said that those changes are received very positively.
Well, this is something that VW, it's not like they just came up with this out of thin air. They made an agreement with the trade union, who was obviously probably like, hey, we're working too hard.
Yeah, we're tired of being pushed into answering email at all hours.
When we go home, we want to have the rest of our lives. So it's funny. Amber and I were talking about this on the social hour earlier today. It's in theory, I'm like, hey, that's a pretty good idea. You know, it helps people disconnect a little bit. But for our jobs, I mean, I would do my job very poorly if I had to leave my email here at the office.
Yeah, if you had to leave all of that for the next day when you come in to catch up on all that stuff.
And that's the thing. You're not choosing not to answer your email, which anyone can do, right? They can say, you know what, I just don't answer email after hours. That's the way it is. They're being forced to not receive their email. What if there is an urgent email that needs to go out to all the employees? I guess they could push it through.
I don't know.
Make an exception.
They sent a text.
They just said.
I mean, how else could you get around this? There probably ways. I'm thinking that the reason why this was a feature shut off is so that it's not like, oh, there's like 6 employees that are always reachable, or 12, or like there's like if it's a union, you don't want like one guy who's always like outdoing everybody. So you want to make sure everyone's on the same footing. You go, look, we're just going to disable the feature. Because otherwise, there'll be one guy who will be like, yeah, I can always answer email. I can always get the extra jobs. They'll move up. These guys will be left behind.
You mean so the people who work harder would move up, and we can't have that?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. Nate, what do you think of this?
It would stress me out too much without email. I mean, I've turned it off on my phone while I'm on holiday. I'm on holiday at the moment, and it's nice not having it on my phone when I'm walking around the stores, but I need it on my laptop. Otherwise, I'm stressed. And so I kind of think, is that because it's an editor thing, and it's just because I want to make sure the site's not exploding with some legal problem or whatever. And so it makes me wonder which employees are having their email turned off. Are they high up? Are they?
Well, no. It says that it's just the union members. The executives will still receive email round the clock.
Oh, okay.
So senior management receives email all the time.
It would just annoy me. It would just really bug me. And what if I didn't use a BlackBerry? I mean, can you not just access it on a different device? I don't use a BlackBerry, so I don't actually know. But I'm pretty sure
I think the company's saying we just aren't going to push the email out. But I guess you could use Exchange and still get it.
Yeah.
Well, if they've got people who are on the clock, for a regular work day, it's pretty much saying, listen, if you're the kind of person who works better at night, for example, too bad, too sad, you need to be on the clock so that we can monitor your performance. You have 100 emails to read them while you're here.
And
you can't take them home for homework.
In the chat room, someone says it's about getting paid for the work you do, not working for free, and I think that's a fair point Byron made. It's about working without pay, but you should be able to just not answer your emails without having them shut off. You should also have the flexibility to be able to do the work that you need to do to make your day easier the next day. I mean, it kind of cuts that out. It basically says you have to work only in these hours. It takes away some of the flexibility. Now, maybe I'm thinking like a knowledge worker here and not like a manager, middle manager, office worker who doesn't run into those situations as much. But I do think it takes some of the choice away. And you as a worker can just say, I don't answer work emails in the evenings. I just don't. I think what they're dealing with is there's an unspoken pressure to answer them if there's a culture of that. And the trade union probably came to the decision, look, the only way to change this culture is to stop delivering the emails in the off hours. And so maybe it's... Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
Are they planning on banning internal email at an IT company in France?
I did hear about that, where they're just saying, you know what, it's a pain, and you should either call, text, or talk to each other. Forget emails. They just cause misunderstandings.
Or use Gmail. I mean, I kind of wonder what conversations guys at Volkswagen have. And, did the union members decide that it was advantageous to them to all not have email? Is it something they voted on? Did they just decide this? Was it decided for the union workers? There's definitely a story behind this that I really want to look into.
Yeah, I do too, because
fascinating.
I mean, couldn't they just say you shouldn't punish an employee for not answering email in the off hours, or they just don't trust management enough that they're like, no, we just need to shut it off? It seems like a scorched earth policy.
Well, it's just a deal between the workers and the company. I mean, if something goes wrong, they can change it. It's not like it's the law or anything.
No,
it's just
I know,
but the temporary. I'm just kind of curious how this will actually pan out. If this will be talking in a couple of months, like this has been completely eradicated because this caused actual problems. Because if it doesn't actually cause any practical concerns for the manufacturing plants or any of these plants, then maybe it wasn't so bad.
Yeah, again, maybe I'm thinking like somebody who's, a knowledge and information worker who has to have access to information at all times. I can't imagine not being able to shoot off an email to Jason, Iyaz, and Sarah when I think about it at 9 p.m. that night. And the same token,
Can you imagine all the notes you'd have to take?
I don't
It would be like
expect
the email queue.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to answer me right away. It's just sort of like, when I'm thinking about it,
It's out there.
I want to make sure that I let folks know about it.
It all feels a bit PR-y, but let's be honest, they're not switching off Twitter. As far as I'm concerned, that would kill me right now.
Yeah.
More than email. More than email at this point in time.
All right, let's move on to the news fuse. AT&T just found a little present under their Christmas tree. The FCC approved AT&T's purchase of 700 megahertz of spectrum from Qualcomm. It's just what they wanted. Only cost $1.9 billion, so it's not much of a gift. They had to pay for it. Qualcomm had used that spectrum for its unsuccessful MediaFlow mobile TV service.
Republic Wireless's not really unlimited service is now really unlimited.
Wow.
The company announced via its blog that it's all in and you'll be able to use a Republic Wireless phone without a chance of being booted. This new strategy is beta, so it may not be permanent, but at least they're trying it out. Bound to make a few people happy.
We're back to square one on the whole Google versus Authors Guild mess. If you recall, the Authors Guild wants to collect royalties on all orphaned works that Google has scanned in. Since their agreement fell apart, they're back to suing each other. Thursday, Google asked Judge Chin to agree that copyright infringement lawsuits must be filed by copyright holders themselves, not associations claiming to represent them. If successful, the motion would make it much harder to bring action against Google.
Dropbox announced a new version of its Android app, Dropbox 2.0, bringing bulk uploads, the ability to star files for offline access, and file renaming. Wow. Exciting. Actually, that was kind of annoying. The company says this version is optimized for ice cream sandwich.
HP's issued some new firmware to mitigate a vulnerability in some of its LaserJet printers. that vulnerability. You know, the one where somebody could theoretically set your printer on fire remotely because they wanted to be a jerk or something. There haven't been any reported instances of flaming HP printers just yet.
Yeah, it sounded like it was pretty unlikely that could actually happen.
I'd like to see it. I don't want anybody to get hurt.
No.
But it would be kind of like a funny, you know, if it's caught on tape.
A good viral video.
That printer's on fire.
We can make it happen.
Yeah.
Go, the company.
Set it on fire.
No, I mean, we could make it actually.
I want to remotely set a printer on fire.
HP said
What
that
can
it
I
would
say?
kick that the
We just don't upgrade the firmware.
the people said that the old firmware didn't even set it on fire in their
What do you think,
tests.
some flammable
HP
paper?
said that there's a safety that always kicks in to keep it from being set on fire.
Mythbusters. GoGo, the company that provides in-flight wireless to many airlines, filed for an IPO in which it hopes to raise $100 million. This year, GoGo's announced that it's trying to branch out just beyond just Wi-Fi. It's going to soon offer news, video, shopping deals, and more. So this money's going to help them out.
RIM just got sued over the trademark for BBM by a broadcast group called BBM Canada that has used the mark for around 60 years. Poor RIM. BBM Canada CEO Jim McLeod said he'd reached out to RIM before he hadn't made any progress in negotiations. RIM filed for the BBM trademark in 2010, but was rejected.
How is BBM Canada just now bringing this up?
Because they tried to solve it without going to court.
Oh, I see.
They even offered to rebrand themselves if RIM would pay for it. BBM, a group that's been around for 60 years.
So RIM said, our stock will never go down.
Yep.
And they're like, we're not talking about your
Just
stock.
like just facepalm. Seriously, facepalm.
RIM. New research out of the NPD group says that smartphones are taking the place of many camcorders and cameras in the U.S. in the first 11 months of 2011. Camcorder sales were down 13%, while point-and-shoot cameras sales were down 17%. However, those phones aren't replacing SLRs. Detachable lens camera sales were up by 12%. Not surprising, but I mean, this is my point-and-shoot.
Getting better and better.
It really is. Yeah.
The $25 bare bones Raspberry Pi PC is one step closer to production. A bunch of the ARM-based boards are being tested, and if they pass, you'll be able to grab one in January. The company's blog says that so far testing has been going pretty well. If you're curious about specs, you're looking at a 700 megahertz processor and 128 or 256 megabytes of RAM, and you'll have to bring your own hard drive. But $25.
I like it. Onward to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Hey, Nate, London is introducing hybrid double-decker buses.
Sort of. They've had hybrid double-decker buses actually for a while, but this is kind of a new design of an old 1960s design bus called the Routemaster. And this is kind of an iconic London red bus. But this new one's all tricked out with latest tech and hybrid engines and stuff. And it's going into, I think, general use next year, the first half. It's a really cool looking bus. It actually comes off the heels of some old bendy buses. I don't know if you have these in the States. I imagine you do. The kind of buses that bend in the middle.
Yeah, if you're
those
standing in the
public
middle,
transportation.
sometimes
38
everyone else
geary.
moves around you because you're in the middle of the pivot.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
38
Those.
gear.
The accordion.
That's it.
That's an accordion bus.
We just got rid of all those buses. So the very last one had its last journey about a week ago. So they've been completely got rid of it in London now. And this new one is going to sort of take over from some of those next year. And it's kind of a cool looking bus. But yeah.
And gets 11.6 miles per gallon.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
guess
really efficient.
It's a bus.
Buses don't get very high miles per gallon, so that's high for a bus. I'm taking it.
That's a high bus.
It's high for a bus. I can't profess to be sort of super high up in my knowledge of hybrid engine fuel efficiency, but I hear that it's pretty good. And the bus looks cool, and it's bright red, so
Awesome.
It's good news for London's roads.
I can't wait to ride one next time I'm in London. I'll ride one to the pub. On to the calendar.
NORAD is ready to track Santa Claus again. What does that mean? Well, it's kind of this fun little... if you go to noradsanta.org, you get a little bit of a better idea. It's a way for kids to track where Santa is when he's delivering all those gifts.
Yeah, this is. I talk about this on Tech History Today, but they've been doing this. We talked about it on Twig too. They've been doing this since before NORAD existed. After the predecessor of NORAD's phone number was accidentally printed in a department store ad for calling Santa, and the colonel in charge of the radar decided to handle the calls by just telling the callers where Santa was, because they're the people who track things in the skies. And they carried on the tradition ever since. Now there's like a Google Earth layer that you can use to watch, and you can go online with Google Maps and check
not
it out.
without its controversy. Back in 2009, NORAD
really?
Santa Tracker erroneously said that Toronto was part of the United States, causing much controversy.
Actually, a little known fact,
in Canada.
Santa conquered Toronto for the United States briefly in 2009.
He was a paid mercenary.
And then gave it back to Canada as a Christmas present.
Well, so NORAD is still actively tracking Santa. If you're interested,
Does
you should
Jodrell Bank
see
do
how it
anything
goes.
like this, Nate? Is there anything like this in the UK?
If by anything like this you mean monitor supernovae, then yeah. Otherwise, not so much. It's a shame.
Father Christmas
Yeah.
tracking, nothing?
No, we're kind of bored of Santa. At the moment, we're working more on coming up with heat maps and clusters of tooth fairies. That's kind of what
Good
Jodrell
idea.
Bank's working on at the moment. Kind of heat maps. It's a Google Maps mashup. You can look at where all the tooth fairies are. That was really convincing, wasn't
They're
it?
looking
I'm
for the
lying.
Higgs fairy, I hear.
You are not lying.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
It's the interaction the fairies have with the background Higgs field.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Finally, the dual-core Meizu MX has been unveiled. It's launching on January 1st in China with HSPA+. And the won't be in the U.S. until sometime next year.
But people are kind of excited about this. And January 1st is coming before our next regular show. So I figured we should be keeping you up to date. Really nothing much else going to happen before then. On to incoming.
Incoming message.
So we talked about Wilmington, North Carolina being a hot test bed. Apparently it's ahead of the curve in a lot of things. Check it out.
Hey guys, Chris calling from North Carolina. Just listened to the podcast where you're talking about Wilmington, North Carolina, testing out the broadcasting stuff in the white space. Little history there. They were one of the test markets for the digital television transition switchover. So not sure if you were aware of that, but thought I'd pass along. Thanks. Love the show. And hope you guys have a great holiday. Bye.
I do remember that. I thought Wilmington sounded familiar.
They get all the cool stuff first. I mean, this was because the
wonder
white
why that
space,
is.
the white space devices that they were operating in between TV frequencies were being, they were, what's the word, licensed, I guess, in Wilmington by the FCC. So, like, apparently, if you want to be on the cutting edge of technology,
I wonder why Wilmington makes such a good test bed.
maybe they have very nice people there. So
Or
they're
they,
not very
they
upset
have,
when
they
something
have
goes wrong.
good spectrum. Yeah. On to the emails. Roger writes in, I was just listening to your podcast in which you discussed Zylogic's report on the top apps on the Android market versus iOS. The prevailing theme of the discussion was that the games were not on Android yet. I did some, quote, crude journalism and went to look at the actual reports out of curiosity, and I would like to bring up a counterpoint. A good portion of Android's top apps were from companies that provide system-changing functions like launchers, LED flashlights, and widgets. This type of app is just not possible on iOS because of their App Store restrictions. So maybe it is not that iOS users have more games, but that Android users have more options. Just food for thought. What do you think, Jason? Could that be true?
Well, I think it absolutely could be true. I don't know if that's necessarily exactly why, though. Just because you're on... I mean, I guess the question would then be, if you could install a replacement launcher on iPhone, would it be in the top 10? You know what I mean? I don't know if
There's
yes,
a
it
selection
could be
bias at work. People who like to tweak their phones are more likely to get an Android phone.
I guess so, because
and
they
therefore these
can.
kind of things will be more popular.
But absolutely, and people are always, I mean, that's definitely one of the big pieces of Android is about modification and kind of customizing it to your own fits.
See, I don't know if the general public goes after launchers though right away, because I mean, if you have, like you were saying, Tom,
A lot of people
if
don't
you're
even know
a
what it
tweaker
is.
of your system, then yeah, you might kind of go towards that. Like I remember when I was using Windows machines a lot. That's what I would do all the time. Is I would tweak. When you're stuck with OS 10, you're like, I don't want to pay for this. I'm just going to stick to what it looks like, and you're fine.
Nate, the study basically said that the top app makers on iOS are all game makers except for Instagram, and Android's split like 50%. Do you find that is surprising?
Not really. I mean, the iPhone, I think, really has proved itself as being a pretty good game platform. Or iOS, to be specific, I suppose, is a good game platform. I don't know. I mean, a lot of these apps that you see on Android, they're kind of, in a way, and this is me going to put myself in severe fanboy territory, I appreciate, but they don't seem necessary on the iPhone. I've never felt I've needed an Android-like launcher on my iPhone. So... I don't know, but it does seem, I'm just flicking through my home screens now, and they're pretty much all games, you know. So I guess it's not that surprising.
I think iOS people just like to have fun.
I have never played a game on my iPhone.
Android people are serious. You've
Never.
never played a game on your iPhone?
No, on my iPad many.
Never.
On my iPhone, no.
Not once.
I think that's what she said.
I can't think of. I certainly don't have any games.
Are you in
Foursquare, huh?
That's
You know what?
not
Gamification.
I mean, it is, but it's not the kind of gaming we're talking about.
I know. I was just
No.
trying to get you.
Because
I know I'm crazy, but I feel like it's too small.
You are
because
crazy.
iOS has Game Center. You know how everybody uses it. No, nobody.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm in the minority, I suppose. Next email from Agaba Nikuhi. Hi there. Tom talked about Playbook OS 2 coming out with email and PIM support. Wasn't it just last month that they showed off native email on the Playbook? I've attached a few pictures to show this. Please correct this mistake, as it may misinform many listeners. Thank you, love the show.
Agaba, thank you for that. I'd like to correct a mistake in your email. No, I'm just kidding. What he's talking about is not an official show-off. I believe there was leaked pictures. There may be an official show-off that RIM did that I'm unaware of. That's possible. But he's right. What I should have been saying yesterday when I was saying OS 2 doesn't have email yet is that they haven't released it to the public yet. They keep delaying the release of Playbook OS 2. And I misspoke. I said it wrong. So thanks for the correction, Agaba. That's it for this year of Tech News Today. Can you believe it?
Yes.
Yes, the calendar says so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It feels like it's
Pretty
been
believable.
I don't mean it's been a long year in a bad way, but this has been quite a year,
This has been a year.
hasn't it?
Huh?
I know, right?
See?
365 days of a year.
Yeah.
Let's
quarter.
have one more day next year.
I like your idea.
I don't know if we can handle that.
Yeah.
Now you're just talking
It's a lot of
crazy.
awesome.
Next year we'll have the Olympics. I love Olympics.
Here at TWiT?
Nate will have the Olympics in his hometown.
That's true, actually.
Not
Nate
hometown, but in
specifically
where he
will be
lives.
Nate's
hosting
house.
some Olympics from his home.
I am booking that 2 weeks off. I am leaving London, and anyone who doesn't do the same is either unfortunate or idiotic. It's going to be hell. It's bad enough now without everyone crowding on London. Honestly, it's dreadful. It's really bad if you live there.
I believe
really
living in London will be an Olympic sport for those 2 weeks.
It's going to be. I mean, honestly, I can't think of anything worse. It's bad enough in the summer holidays. It was really bad during the royal wedding. During the Olympics, it's just... They're going to have special lanes dedicated for sort of sportsmen and sponsors and people like that to drive from one side of the city to the Olympic Stadium. Can you imagine what effect that's going to have on regular traffic? You know, it's honestly, it's
They're going to have
not gonna
special lanes for people to just run in, too.
Yeah. Well, they're making, I think, a fast lane on Oxford Street, which is like the busiest street in England, so that people actually who don't want to just stand around taking photos like statues can actually get to where they're going. People like me. Do I sound bitter? I'm meaning to sound bitter.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. It would be a huge hassle if it was in...
Petaluma.
Yeah. Oh, we got room. We got farms.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's not going to be amazing, but it'll be. It's good that we've got it for sure.
Well, folks, thanks to everyone all year long. Well, as long as we had it. We didn't have it all year long. For contributing to our subreddit. It really does help us in determining the stories every day. TechNewsToday.reddit.com. Obviously, we won't be pulling it for stories the next week because we did pre-recorded shows. But we will be back looking at it on January 2nd when we come back for regular shows on that Monday. Nate Lanxon, thanks for celebrating our last regular show of the year with us. Appreciate that.
No, it's really my pleasure. I'm on holiday right now, and there's very little I could be doing at 11 o'clock at night that I'd enjoy more, to be perfectly honest. It's been a blast.
You know, I'm both complimented and a little sorry to hear that.
No, it's all good. It really is.
Wired.co.uk is the place to find all the stuff that Nate does. You guys going to be covering CES?
And we're going to be covering it, yeah, probably not in as much detail. I mean, we do a lot of non-tech stuff as well. So the CES time, we tend to breathe a little bit actually during CES. But we have a podcast. I'd love guys to check that out. If you search for Wired UK podcast or Wired UK on iTunes or something, give it a listen. We've got like an outtake special that's coming on Sunday on Christmas Day, which I'm deliberately putting out 2 days late. So anyone who checks out the show after hearing this show won't hear 20 minutes of us laughing and forgetting what we're supposed to be talking about. But
all right,
it's a couple of good shows.
Absolutely, go check it out. That's just search for Wired UK podcast. You'll find it. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening all year long, or even if you didn't watch or listen all year long, for as much as you could, at live.twit.tv. Of course, you can find our shows on the web anytime you want at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv. Give us a call, leave us a voicemail. We'll get back to them after the first of the year. It's 260-TNT Show. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Happy New Year.
Here we go. Curtis B. Sent this in, and it's pretty awesome.
You have to explain
Hi,
that when I'm
TNT.
older.
Curtis B. from the chat room here, and yes,
Hey, Curtis
I'm still
B.
recovering from my being a guest on the Open Mic 2011 TNT show.
Yay.
I'm wishing everyone at the Brick House and everyone in the chat room a very Merry Twitmas and a Happy New Year. I've also attached my poorly recorded, poorly played, slightly improvised version of the TNT theme song for you all to enjoy. Merry Twitmas to all, and to all, have some good tech this new year.
Wow. That's the best thing I've heard
Literally
all year.
rocked.
That was awesome.
That's fantastic.